Welcome to the Living Well with Carol show, where health and wellness is the goal. Living wellness, purpose bright, let's make the world shine with our light, with our light.
Hi, and welcome back to the Living Well with Carol podcast. I am thrilled you're here today for today's conversation because I've got someone really special to introduce you to, my really good friend, Shannon Thornton. So I'm so excited. She is a licensed professional counselor in the state of Texas with a rich clinical background in professional training, development, neuropsychology, cognitive behavioral therapy, all the things. And since 2014, she's been serving clients through her private practice, bringing both expertise, compassion to those she helps. And she is also the author of Special Sauce. And that's what we're going to talk about today. A powerful book that offers a recipe for mental wellness, blending science and faith to bring a real hope and healing right in the therapist's office. So join me in welcoming Shannon. Hey, Shannon.
Hi, thank you so much, Carol. I'm really excited to be here.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to have you. Shannon's just an amazing person with a heart of faith and a heart to really help people. So, Shannon, before we dive into your book, tell everybody a little bit about yourself. Where did you grow up? What shaped you early in life? All those things.
Well, I'm a native Texan because I know that's important to my fellow Texas friends. And I did have the pleasure of living in 3 other states growing up. We moved with my dad for his job. And as far as shaping me, I think a really big foundation was making sure that I got connected with my sport of choice and with the church choir and my youth group wherever we lived. I just made a big new place smaller by doing those things. And I've done that repeatedly in my life.
That is awesome. So, what's something that most people don't know about you that makes you uniquely you?
Okay, this is a newfound information. I just learned going through some family history that the Mayflower Compact that was signed by the people who traveled on the Mayflower over to America, the fourth signature on there is William Brewster. William Brewster is the minister that said the prayer at the first Thanksgiving. And he's also mentioned by Linus on the Peanuts special of It's a Great Thanksgiving, Charlie Brown.
I remember that.
That's pretty neat. Part of my ancestry.
That is pretty cool. That is awesome. So, can you share a favorite story or quote or moment from the book, Special Sauce, that still gives you chills or makes you laugh?
Okay, so I've got 2 examples of that. The one that really brought this whole thing home for me is I've got the book next to me, and in chapter 3, which talks about our self-talk, when I was doing the research, I found that Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which is basically human motivation and how it's based on 5 needs of basic survival to self-fulfillment. There's 5 different levels. And so Abraham Maslow defined these a very long time ago, starting with psychological things like sleep and food and air and water and that kind of thing, moving all the way up to self-fulfillment. And if you look at Psalm 23, if you're familiar with the 23rd Psalm, I don't know, it makes me think of funerals sometimes, or like when I'm in my darkest valley, because that's when God is carrying us. But if you read the Psalm, you'll notice that it starts with the Lord is my shepherd, and it starts by giving me my very basic needs, and it goes all the way through to, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever, which is as Christians, our self-actualization, our complete fulfillment. So when I learned that, I thought, wow, this is going to be a great book. because this is intertwined in all of the book. A funny thing, I'm very transparent in my life and in the book, because I want people to realize that just because I'm a therapist, I still have the same struggles. I just happen to have really cool tools to deal with them. But when our first child was baptized, and this story's in the book, I was so nervous about making everything perfect that I gave myself hives, and I didn't realize it. I thought that I was having an allergic reaction to something the dry cleaners had done to my dress or something like that. It was horrible. I don't think anyone really noticed it except for me, but I was mortified and I was not self-aware at all, which is another chapter of the book. And after the entire baptism was over, and I was so relieved that it had gone well, my daughter let out a huge belch at right when we sat down, when it was in one of those moments of quiet time in the church. So, I mean, yeah. So crazy things happen to me, and I share a lot of those crazy things in here, and how I could have been handling things a lot better if I had known then the things that I know now. So those are two pretty cool stories in there.
Well, I pulled up Psalm 23 and I love that one. The Lord is my shepherd. I lack nothing. He makes me lie down in green pastures. So I never really thought about what you said from the beginning of your needs to the very end of our needs. And you made two comments. One, you talked about self-talk, and one, you talked about being self-aware.
Mm-hmm.
And I think those kind of go hand in hand. I almost think being self-aware is the first part, because if we're not aware of how we're speaking to ourselves, right, then
Yep.
it's going to be hard to change that self-talk, because scripture says power of life is in, or death and life is in the power of the tongue. And my studies all throughout scriptures, he says and tells us how what we think can harm us internally, causing your hives.
Exactly. That we have those somatic responses, our physical responses. And that's so interesting that you said that you noted that self-awareness comes before self-talk, because if you look in the front of the book with the chapters, there are 6 ingredients, and the first one is sleep, and then self-awareness, and then self-talk, and then self-care, and then support and spirituality. Those are the 6 ingredients of the special sauce. But yeah, you've got to know, you have to be able to be aware of, wait, how am I feeling? What am I thinking? And understand that we're the only creature on the planet that has the ability to reason and get out of our fight or flight. We don't have to believe everything we think, and we don't have to act on our feelings ever. We
get
act
a choice
on our thoughts, and we
Mhm.
can change those.
I love that. I know when I'm working with clients for nutrition, wellness, there's so much that I talk to them about, and mindset is one of the biggest ones, to become self-aware of the things they say to themselves, the things they actually believe about themselves. Sometimes we have beliefs about ourselves that aren't even true, and when you rationally say them out loud, it doesn't even make sense. And then also catching yourself, that things sometimes we say to ourselves, you would never speak to another human being. You would never say that to a spouse or to a child,
Mm-hmm.
but yet you do that to yourself. So what
You're
are your
right.
thoughts? What are your thoughts about that?
Well, I think you're absolutely right. And not being aware of it, we are our own worst critics. And it's okay to want to improve and continue to be better, but we really have to put our thoughts up against what is right and true in scripture. Because clients will say to me, oh, well, like, what's your narrative? Like, what's your belief about you and where you are in the world and what's going on? And if they have these self-defeating things happening in their thought life, well, then that's the glasses they're seeing everything through. And then I challenge them. Like I've told you, what you see is what you get. So I'm like, I don't know how is that making you feel? Pretty crummy.
Yeah.
Let's rework that and test that against truth. Well, God says I am this. God says I am loved. I am beloved. I am worthy. I'm redeemed. And that's not what you're telling me. So let's get it together. Hold
That's
everything
right.
against the truth.
I love that. And God calls himself I am. And
Mhm.
then also what we call ourselves when we say things, I am a woman. I am. So we don't realize we're calling on God and we're calling that spirit into us, my thoughts. And it's powerful. So when you think of it like that, how could you say anything less than wonderful things about yourself? We may have
Absolutely.
things we have to fix. We may have things we need to correct, change, new habits to create, but that doesn't mean we're any less of a person.
Exactly. Great points.
Absolutely. So, what do you hope your readers walk away with after they read Special Sauce?
I hope they feel equipped to understand that feeling the way they feel is not required, that there are answers to things going on in their lives they're not alone in, and that they can have absolute full effect over their life by using the information in this book to check their sleep, to make sure they're paying attention to how well they get along with others. I had one client that was like all of her friendships were falling apart. And I was finally like, well, what's the common denominator, sister? Like what could you possibly be doing or saying or putting out there that's causing this rift in all of your relationships? Or are you just choosing people that aren't for you? So I really hope that people just realize that there's a way to get better and to feel better, and that it's not really that hard. There are also great exercises in the back of the book. There's an appendix that has a sleep diary and information about an emotional intelligence framework, because our emotional intelligence, how well we get along with other people, how well we get along with ourselves, with our self-talk, our relationship skills, that can all be learned. Our IQ might be something we get from genetics and improve a little bit in time, but our emotional intelligence is a skill that can always be honed. And there's a quiz in here that tells you if you've got any emotional intelligence at all, or if you're killing it. There's a mood tracker. There's a feelings wheel. There's lots of exercises to really help you identify what you're thinking that's not working for you. So I guess that's a long way of saying I just hope that they read it and realize God wired us to thrive and to live and to be happy. That's his goal for us. He wants us to take advantage of all the beautiful things he's given us. And if we start going down the wrong path or not living our best life, well, there's a way to fix that.
Okay. I totally agree with that. So what do you say? I love that you give people something for their toolbox that they can ask themselves. But I think the most important thing for people to realize, just because you have some things to work on doesn't make you any less valuable.
Oh,
You
gosh.
have value right where you're at,
Yes.
right? And
Yes.
also, God has given us free will, and he's
Mhm.
also given us free will in what we attract.
Yes.
So
He
if
sure
I'm
has.
always, so if I'm always thinking negative, that's what I'm going to keep getting. If I
That's
start
right.
shifting my thoughts to something positive, that's what I'm going to keep getting. What are
Well,
your thoughts
and
about that?
you're right. I mean, you think about people that you know that are just kind of a Debbie Downer. They kind of drain your energy. They're negative a lot. They don't smile very often. Their posture is inward. And those people attract negativity. So everything they see, the majority of things that they see are going to be seen through the lens of, well, life is horrible. But in turn, if you think about, well, who do I know that's generally pretty happy and upbeat, who's positive? Well, I want to be around that person. That person makes me feel better about myself. That person speaks life into me. Not that anybody is perfect, certainly not. We're all very imperfect. But if we can just pay attention to what we're putting out there, we'll notice that what we put out tends to come back our way.
Awesome. I was listening to something the other day and it said in as little as 17 seconds, you can shift what you're attracting or not attracting.
Ooh, that's
And that really
power.
got me thinking, because I'm like, oh, that person just cut in front of me, and then I start getting angry, and I'm like, ooh, I've got 17 seconds to turn that around. I don't want to attract other people like that. I don't want to stay in a state of being angry. I want to attract the good things. And when I say attract, it's more just me choosing to see things in a more positive way, instead of, the person that walks down, stumps her toes, spills their drink. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Get something good going, not something negative.
And you're right. And it's a skill and it's a practice we have to do. It's very neat that, and it's explained more in the book, but we actually have the power to create new neural pathways in our brain. And so that we automatically go to a more positive place instead of to the negative place we've always been going to. And I've got a really neat story in there that I'm not going to share right now. You're going to have to read it. But it's just about the pathways that we make. And I have 2 adult children, and they will tell you, they've even made TikToks making fun of me. If y'all are listening, you know what I'm talking about. They make fun of me because in our house, it's, be the good in the world and choose joy and find your happy and make it a great day. And I know it drives them crazy, but I also know it's part of their spirit. And that's
right.
something that I've always tried really hard to put into them as an automatic way to see the world, to get that neuro pathway of positivity and growth and love and faith and joy and all the positive things in life, because we live in a broken world and it's a real task sometimes to have to find that happy place.
Well, my husband Jason always says it's a great day to have a great day.
Yes.
He says that every morning throughout the day.
It's a
And
great day. It's a
yeah,
great
and
day.
I see Jason in the comments. I see Greg. Thank you. He says, awesome women following Christ. I see Micah. I love the comments that I'm seeing. And so I have to ask you, though, when you were writing this book, because it was no small task, that's a pretty good book, big enough to read, but a lot of information. How did you stay motivated and grounded during the process? What kept your thoughts in line, or what inspired you?
That's a really good question. Honestly, and I know this sounds really cheesy, but once I finally decided to write it, because I fought it, and you'll read that in the beginning, I fought it. I tried to share the information with friends, or bless my heart, my family, bless their hearts. They had to listen to it all the time. I'm a public speaker, so I did it on that realm. And I thought, this is good, because I just felt it so strongly in me, this information, that it needed to be shared, because it's not hard. And it makes such a difference. I've seen it make such a difference with the hundreds of people that I've treated over 11 years or so, that I had to get it out. So when I finally decided to write the book, I feel like God he just made it flow. It just came out. And I would tell my husband, sorry, you're gonna have to I need you to cook dinner tonight. I'm in the zone. I've got stuff to say. And it just came out. And I never really lost motivation. I was excited about it. The hard part was editing it. So I sent it to some people in my life that are very, very good at that type of thing, that helped me reword or say it where it made better sense. And that was probably the hardest thing for me, was having to redo certain parts until I finally pushed the go button and submitted it to a publisher or two. So yeah, I think God really motivated me, because I believe in this stuff so much.
What is one of the funniest times that you kind of got oh, I need to put that in the book, like in the middle of the night, when you're watching a movie?
I would run it, because this book is full of research. It's not just stuff that I came up with. It's research. It's things that I do in my practice, which are always evidence-based. But anytime I ran across an article or a story, or, TikTok or whatever, I'd be like, oh my gosh, that's so great. And I would stop everything I was doing and I'd have to write it down. And I still do that in the event, because I'm having an event coming up in October that I want to keep adding to, because this stuff, it doesn't change. There are more and more examples of why this works and why God wired us this way. And anytime I found something to support what I was teaching, I just got the buzz and had to write it down and stick it in.
That's awesome. Okay, let's see. Jason says, when is this going to be on Audible?
That's a great question, Jason. I just spoke with my audiobook network today, and I've selected a narrator, and they are actually starting the recording today. So as long as it takes her to say all this stuff in my book, a couple of months probably, and then you can listen. If you're not a fan of reading, then you can at least hear it.
Well, that's why Jason's asking. He prefers Audible. He listens in the car all the time.
No, I get it. I get it. We're such a busy person, busy people now, that it's a lot easier. I know I listen to sermons in the mornings when I'm getting ready, and positive podcasts like this just to get me going in the morning. So I'm glad that there was a desire for it to be on audio. So awesome. Jason, with my fingers crossed, I hope that you are pleased with it.
Well, you're getting some great comments. You got a lot of people popping in that just love you, think you're amazing, and actually really love the work that you're doing. So I love this so much.
Thanks.
So were there any scriptures, prayers, or faith practices that guided you through writing and publishing?
I just prayed primarily. There wasn't anything specific that I did as I was writing this, but I prayed specifically that what God wanted to be known in the book was known, that I would hear it, know it, be able to put it into words, but more importantly, that it came across the right people, that the people who needed it the most would receive it, be in a place where they would receive it. And, my sweet friends have been so supportive, and my family has been so supportive. My clients have been so supportive, but they are stuck hearing the same information all the time. I want it to get to people who don't know the information, who need something different, that's not hard and scary, that's applicable. So my biggest prayer when I wrote this was just get this stuff out where more and more people can hear it and understand it.
That's right. So Lucinda says, what an amazing woman she truly is, inside and out, definition of growth in the Lord. That's awesome.
What a beautiful thing to say.
I think it's so wonderful that you not only were able to bless your clients with this, but now you're going a scope outward. It almost sounds like when you were writing this, it's like, Jesus, take the wheel.
Yes.
Let it be received by the right people. Let your words be known. And I truly believe the Holy Spirit will make that happen.
I hope so. That's my hope.
So we talk a lot here about living well, body, mind, spirit. How do you personally care for your health and balance your daily life?
That is a good question, because that whole practice what you preach thing is really important. Walking the talk, if you will. Like I said, I do make sure that every morning that I listen to something positive. I may not be perfect every morning. I might jump on Instagram or TikTok or whatever. But the best thing for me is when I'm getting ready in the morning is to have a sermon or a positive podcast or music on that fills my soul. I guarantee you that you feel differently when you start your day off differently. If you start your day off in chaos, then it tends to lead to a chaotic day, and you just feel flustered. If you're running late, if something happens, if there's a traffic jam, if you didn't, if your hair didn't do right, whatever the problem was, if you're not filling yourself first, then you don't have anything to give to anybody else. Kind of like the airplane put oxygen on yourself first. So I try to do that first. I also exercise in some way about 4 or 5 days a week.
Heck
I'm usually
yeah.
kind of sleep in on the weekends and go to late church, but I do feel better when I walk and move my body. And that's something that I believe very strongly in. I try to eat well, pay attention. I get lots of protein and take lots of really good supplements. So I think it's good that we treat our bodies well, with enough sleep, as well as what we put into our minds and our spirits. And just a little note on sleep. My husband always says that I'll be a great dead person. That's one of my favorite jokes that he says, because I'm such a great sleeper and I love my sleep. I take naps. I just read that people live longer who take little 20-minute naps during the day, because without sleep, you can't have good enough cognition to, pay attention to your self-awareness, to mind your thoughts, to reach into your spirituality, to get the support you need. Nothing works if you don't have sleep. So I like to consider myself a professional. Really
Oh,
important. So yeah,
you're speaking my language. I'm telling you. Because
Yeah.
I've always used that analogy of putting the mask on yourself, because I really focus on women over 40 in my business. And September was the month that my mom died in 1990 of a massive heart attack at 45 years old. And so I really want to impact women to understand that the way they take care of their health impacts generations to come. And it sets the stage for how they're going to take care of themselves. So kind of like that analogy of the mask on your face, if the airplane's going down, you can't help anybody if you don't take care of yourself first. And we're not talking about selfishness. We're talking about self-love, taking care of yourself. So when I take care of myself, when you take care of yourself, you're now showing your children what to expect out of being a woman and a wife, and what your boy should expect out of a wife as well as their self. And that is so powerful. Supplements, they're a bridge to nutrition. Unfortunately, we can't get everything we need from the nutrition that we have in our food these days. And so I think supplementation is important, and knowing the right ones. Sleep, can't say enough about it, because especially as we hit 40 and above, that old cortisol comes knocking, and our body responds differently to stress that it did when it was able to when it was younger. So a lot of times women come in going, I can't lose weight. Well, they've not created new habits to serve and self-care for themselves so they can adapt and change the cortisol drops. And that's one of the
Absolutely.
biggest things I've seen.
Yeah, cortisol belly is real.
It's a real, but you know what? It doesn't have to be. We
No.
can change it, but it takes new habits, self-awareness, and positive self-talk. And you had mentioned one thing earlier. I really think that when you wake up, the way you start your day is the way it's going to end. Or unless you can really be self-aware to change it. But I mean, when I wake up, I start thinking about, God, thank you for the air that I breathe. Thank you for waking me up this morning. Thank you for the coffee I'm maybe about to go have after I drink that cup of water.
Right.
So I start thinking about gratitude, and I start feeling how I want the day to go and how that wonderful feeling is going to feel inside my body. Because if I wake up going, I'm not awake, the alarm went off, I've got to go do this, that's no way to have fun. God had created us to be happy, to be in joy, to fulfill a purpose. And so it all starts in the mindset when you first wake up in the morning, as well as how you end your day.
Well, you're right. And it also, we have some good friends in our small group who like to do their gratitude in the evenings. Big shout out. And they do it as a couple, and just focusing your mind on what you're grateful for. Sometimes that's all you can do when, this is probably in my something years of life. This has most likely been the hardest year of my entire life, this past 12, 13 months. And I will tell you that there were days that the only thing that got me through was finding something to be thankful for. Even if it was like I've got a beautiful home to live in, things that we often take for granted that not everyone is afforded. So it is really important to do that. And that gratitude is part of our self-care. I do talk about self-care in here because there's a difference between self-care and selfishness. Self-care is not selfish.
That's right.
But there's something that I call the me movement. And I describe it by the way that, when you and I were growing up, we would take pictures of other things and other people. And now society, we take pictures of ourselves. So we're very much more me focused. How do I feel about it? I want to make sure that everyone knows what my opinion is. And we become so self-centered that then we're really unable to think about other people's needs, how we can serve them, because again, the lens that we're looking through is something that turns back around on us. That is not what self-care is. Self-care is taking care of what God's given us so that we can serve other people. And that means sleep. That might mean gratitude. There's a whole section in the book about grounding and connecting to the earth.
Absolutely.
Lots of ways we can do that.
Yes. You can ground by just going barefooted on the grass.
Yes.
I mean, and we need that because we're around so much of the waves of social media, your phone, your watch, all this stuff. You've got to reground because all of that can interfere with the body and how you focus, how you think, how you feel. So you can ground just walking out barefooted in the grass. There's even grounding mats that you can put your feet on. There's even a grounding sheet you can put on your bed. There's one that I sit on in my chair. There's so many different ways. And there's even it's over here flashing. I have a unit that blocks EMF 30,000 feet around me. So my neighbors can thank me and they don't even know it, but it helps with blocking EMF because that's so, it can be really detrimental and you don't even recognize or realize what's harming you. And so it's important to get your grounding in, definitely.
Well, it really is, particularly, and I'm so glad you mentioned that. I've got a grounding mat underneath my desk behind me. My husband and I sleep on grounding sheets. You plug them in. People are like, "You're plugging your sheets in." Yes, we do.
It makes a difference.
It really does.
We've even noticed we can wake up less sore after a workout.
Isn't that crazy?
Mm-hmm.
We're like selling this stuff.
I know.
And my husband and I went to Bouchard Gardens in Canada a few months ago. And I don't know if you've ever been there, but it's like nothing I've ever seen. And there was a portion of these gardens that was all trees. It was just trees with this beautiful trail. And I could feel just everything like connecting to the trees and the earth, and just the calm in my body was unbelievable and unmistakable. I didn't want to leave. And I truly believe, and I do know scientifically, that we are made up of the same thing the earth is. Mm-hmm. That's why it's called grounding, because we are connecting with that from which we came. Yeah. And it makes a huge difference. In fact, just a few weeks ago, I was really stressed out. I had a client that was really hard on my heart. It was difficult for me. And because that happens sometimes. Mm-hmm. And I just went outside and I got in my patio chair and I put my bare feet on the grass and I just put my head back and let the breeze go through. And in about 10 minutes, I was a new woman.
I love that.
And it's free.
And also connecting with, like I know when I go on a cruise and that water.
Yes.
It's just, water is so peaceful to me. And it seemed like we connect with the salt water.
Yes. I read somewhere, and don't quote me, and I'm not going to say it right, but that salt water, standing in bare feet in salt water, like at the coast or on the shoreline, that's like the best combination of everything because of the salt in the water and the way combines with your own body. And I can't say it in a cool way, but it
I'm
does.
saying
Salt water is awesome.
it's a beach trip. We got
Yeah.
to go on a beach trip.
Yes.
And Jason says we're all connected to each other and to the earth. It's amazing.
That's the truth.
And Greg had mentioned earlier, him and his wife, Stephanie, they do the, every morning they get up and they do gratitudes together. And he said, if they don't do it together or if they miss it, they can tell it. And so I think that's really cool when you have a spouse that's in the same place as you, because that can help with growth. It's harder to grow when you're doing it alone, right?
It really, really does help because it motivates you. It holds you accountable, all the good things.
That's right. So has God ever surprised you with an extra ingredient in your own life, kind of like a special sauce moment that changed your direction?
Yeah. I was a stay-at-home mom. I had a career. We had our family. I was a stay-at-home mom for many years. And I tried to start a business just to find something to do once the kids were really in school, just to give back and keep my brain going. And I did some parenting workshops, but that was very part-time. I had a couple of fun part-time gigs with the school districts, but it was really not working for me. And then God's like, you're going back to get your master's when you're 40 years old. And I will tell you, I was like, that's too big. That's too much. I've got 2 kids and a husband, and I'm running the show here. I've got all this managed. How on earth do you expect me to be able to go back to college? But I did it. Tremendous support from my husband and my kids. And he would, it was at night. It took me a few extra years because I did it very slowly, but it has led me here. So I guess my shout out message is you're never too old to learn and to take a new direction, because I did a completely different job before this.
That is awesome. That is so good. So in the book, Special Sauce, what was the hardest chapter for you to write and why?
Probably the chapter on spirituality was probably the hardest. And you'd think, well, why wasn't that the easiest? It was the hardest because I don't want to eliminate people who aren't believers from reading this. And you don't have to be a believer to read this book. Because it's got the neuroscience, it's got the research, it's got my stories, my clients' stories. It's chock full of that stuff. It also has equal parts scripture to go along with it. So I had to write it very delicately so that I could reach people that may not believe the same thing I do, but so that they would be open and willing to read it anyway. Because the research that I found was that, and in my practice, I have experienced myself, people who have a foundation where they believe in something bigger than themselves, they do much better in life because they have a faith and a hope in things to come, and that a benevolent creator is on their side and helping them, versus I was just thrown into this world and I'm going to go into darkness when I'm dead. What's the point?
Yeah.
It makes a huge, huge difference. But that chapter was particularly difficult to write because I didn't want to turn anybody off from reading the whole thing.
I love that. But I really believe the way it has been written, it can sow some really good seed. It's going to reinforce the people who have that spirituality and give them the freedom to grow in it. But I definitely think that it's written in such a way that it's going to plant some really good seeds and gives people some really good questions to ask to overcome that thought of, okay, I came into this world and darkness is going to follow. When I'm dead, I'm gone. That's it. That's the end of the story. Because the good news is it's not the end of the story. There's eternal life.
That's absolutely right. And I like that you said that about planting the seed, because maybe God can use this to bring more people to Christ, which is our whole purpose, to love God and love people and to let them know Christ. So hopefully this will be my little way of getting that word out. Maybe the book will fall on the ground somewhere and the right person will pick it up. But it's not a preachy book at all. It's just I want to help you, and you don't have to believe what I believe, but you'll still get something cool out of it.
I love that. We have Tina on, and she says, "Love you, Shannon. You are definitely an inspiration to us all."
Thank you.
And Jason says, "I learn something new almost every day." And I think that's important to keep growing and keep learning. And we're never too old to learn. We're never too old to grow. And I think that is so important. I think God designed us to never stop growth, to always keep achieving as far as the way we think, the way we believe, the things we believe in with Him, that all things are possible through Him.
Absolutely. I'm sure you're not the same girl you were when you were in high school or college in your 20s or 30s. I know I'm not. I'm a better version of myself because I've learned. I've tried to be a better version. And I think we all have our own journey. That's where I think comparison becomes a problem, because a lot of my clients are in like that just got out of school to late 20s, early 30s. And they're like, well, I should be this by this point, or I should already have a mate. I should already have this big job and three, $100,000 and this big house. And I'm like, whoa. I always say, don't should yourself. It's messy. And don't compare yourself with other people. We all have our own journey, our own path, our own things that are really hard to get over, that God designed for us to grow and learn. And I compare it to, and I don't think that's in the book, but in my office, I compare it to those little charts when you're kids, the little growth charts. And it kind of goes like this. And like, here's where your kid is, and here's the X, and here's the basic. As long as your kid is growing and staying in the lane, then they're good. And I think that's the same with us and God. As long as we're learning and growing and staying in our lane, we do okay. And so comparison is a thief of joy. Don't do it.
I agree. I've always heard compare, despair, neglect.
Ooh, that's good. I'll write that down.
If you compare yourself, then you start feeling bad about yourself. Then you don't take care of yourself. And that's anything. If my car is not as nice and I'm comparing my car, then I don't take care of my car because I am resenting I don't have the other car. So it's just a double-edged sword that's not going to end well.
Boy, is that right. I'm stealing it.
And you said something else. You said, I'm a different person today than I was when I was in my 20s and 30s. And you know what? I'm a different person today because I made the mistakes I did in my 20s and 30s.
Amen to that.
Sometimes I've said, man, I wish I could go back knowing what I know now.
Yes.
But if I knew then what I know now, I don't know who I would be today.
Right.
So God has a plan and a purpose to use everything that you go through to create and provide you the path of the way He's designed you to be and live.
Yes, without a doubt.
Greg says, we never stop growing and learning. If you turn off by thinking you're done in life, the enemy will come calling.
Ooh, Greg. Pontificate, brother.
I know. Speak it. That's right. So did you face any self-doubt or resistance while writing this book? And how did you overcome it?
Self-doubt, yes. You've heard of imposter syndrome. And I thought, nobody's going to want to read this. They're going to think it's goofy. Nobody wants a recipe for wellness. It's been done before. This stuff is so obvious. Why am I spending all this time? A lot of that went through my head. But this is what I think. I feel like when God has us on a plan, the enemy is going to try to knock us off.
That's right. And he does that through your thoughts for sure.
Yes. I'm like, so with all the when there's a lot of doubt or when I felt attacked, I really felt like, well, I must be a threat. This must be a threat because the enemy does not want any of us to be well. He wants all of us to be sick, for all of our heads to be confused, for all of us to be watching the news, freaking out about how many cans of food we have and do we have enough fresh water and
Toilet paper. Do we have enough
toilet paper, for heaven's sake, toilet paper. Yeah. So yes, I did have a lot of self-doubt, but I kept going because I kept reminding myself, I'm sharing with people what I know to be true. I've seen it myself. I've experienced it myself. And by golly, there's a lot of papers on it.
That's right.
It's not, I just don't make this stuff up. And and the best part is that God's like, yeah, I told you that already, but thanks for figuring that out. So yes,
That's awesome.
Lots of self-doubt with that, but I got over it.
Greg says something that you alluded to. As society, we try to compare ourselves to social media people. We only see what they want us to see, not their real life. And that is so true. But also we have to remember darts are being hurled in all different directions. Food industry, restaurants, advertising, social media, the spotlights, TV shows. And this is where it's important to be in God's word. It's important to know what he says about things, and we know whose we are, not just who we are, because we need to follow his guidelines of what to follow, not the world's, because the world is not going to take us the direction we need to go.
No, it may be fun in the moment, but it's got its consequences, and that's not the direction. We're getting out of our lane.
That's right.
When we do that. So that is my dad always taught us. He's probably the most influential person in my life. And one thing that always resonates with me, he has a lot of isms that he says that are really funny, but one is that, does this square with what is right and just? Oh. And he worked, he's retired now, but when he worked, he came across many opportunities to do the wrong thing because he is in a high level executive situation where people were trying to buy him or, coerce him into doing the wrong thing. And he always has lived his life with integrity and kind of just put the situation up against, does it square with what is right and just? And if it didn't, he's like, no, I'm not going to do that. And so I think that is another thing that we can do. And what I try to do myself, whether it's in my personal life or my business, I'm not going to charge people more than I should. I'm not going to commit insurance fraud. I'm not going to, I'm going to try to be real, and I'm going to try to take care of people the best way I can, but I'm not going to be dishonest with them.
That's awesome. That's the way it should be.
Yeah.
I love that. So what's the most encouraging feedback you've received so far from your readers of the book Special Sauce?
Gosh, I've got some really neat things that people have said that just talk about imposter syndrome. It's like, is that because you're my friend, or do you really like it? That kind of thing. But I was at church a couple weeks ago, and somebody at church who had said, I bought the book just to be supportive. I didn't even know if I'd like it or not. And he said, when I read books, I get my highlighter out and I highlight stuff that I can come back and reference later. And he said, my book at home, I almost use a whole highlighter in this book. And I was like, I have a ribbon. This is the coolest thing I've ever heard, because that means that in the future, he can go back and use it, or in the future, he can use it, go, hey, I highlighted something about that, and encourage a friend. So it made me feel really good that he read it and he found things worthy of actually making extra note of. And that was probably the best feedback I've ever gotten.
Well, I'll be honest with you. I think this would be good as a Bible study. And I'm
Thanks.
part of a ladies' Bible study group, and we read books. And I'm going to suggest this one to them because I just think that it's so impactful, not just because it's spiritual and scriptural, but because it's guiding people with the toolkit and the tools that they need to retrain the brain, create healthier habits, and learn how to and have joy in life. And I just think that's so powerful.
Well, thank you. And that's so interesting you said that, Carol, because somebody said, well, when's your next book coming out? That's just what people say. And I'm thinking, are you kidding me? But I thought about, I wonder if I could create a Bible study, just a simple Bible study to go along with this, to have questions to go along with it, or a devotional book, or just something to add on to this. So
we have special sauce. Now we need meat and potatoes.
There you go. There you go. Meat and potatoes edition. There you go.
No, this is just such an amazing book. And people struggling with mental wellness is rampant.
Yeah.
All the things that's happened, especially in the last 5-6 years, has really impacted the way people think, the way they speak, the way they feel about themselves, the way that they attack others for different beliefs. I mean, there's just a lot of confusion out there. And I really believe it's because they don't have the tools to really take care of themselves and to see things.
That is so true. I've got a couple really cool exercises that I have in the book that I teach in my office about that self-awareness of knowing so that I don't attack people, how to keep myself kind of calm,
right?
To preemptively do it, but then also how to calm myself down after I've flipped my lid, if you will. And you're right. I think the more tools we have, even if they're simple reminders, can make a really, really big difference. And that's what I'm hoping this does for people.
I hope so too, because chaos is abundant.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like everywhere I turn, it's like there's chaos, turmoil all the time. And when people are in chaos, they're manipulatable. Did I say that right? Manipulatable.
Yes. Say it with authority and I will believe that.
That's right. And we have Lucinda says the book is simply putting its own seed out in the world. Iron sharpens iron.
Thank you.
That's so good.
Thank you.
And then we have Jason. I love the tools that we can use to be better. I love the word better because no matter what it is, it can be better.
Yes. Thank you, Jason. It can be better. And this on my website, you can even download the appendix so that you can like print everything out and make more copies of it if you want to, and really work through things.
Oh, I love that.
It's just real important that this stuff is applicable and not just like, oh, that's a cool idea. So, the chaotic mind is what I think the enemy wants us to stay in.
Yes.
Where we're confused, where we can't be calmed, where we act crazy. And it's definitely best to find peace. And that's one thing that I hope that people do with this. It's written there somewhere. Maybe it's on the back of the book, Finding Your Peace, that I want to help people find their peace because it is there to be found.
I agree. I think that is so amazing. So one fun thing I want to ask you, if you could sit down to dinner with any author, biblical figure, who would it be and why?
Okay, so
hard question, I know.
Yeah, the story of Lazarus's sisters, Mary and Martha. If there are listeners out there who are not familiar, Martha was just a busybody, always doing the cooking and doing everything and getting the house ready and working really hard, scurrying around. And Mary just kind of chilled out and sat at the feet of Jesus and listened. And Mary went to Jesus when Jesus was visiting, and she's like, dude, can you tell her to help me? And Jesus is like, actually, she's doing what I want her to do. She's chilling and she's listening and she's gathering and she's sitting at my feet. She knows what's most important. And a long time ago, I was doing an exercise at a women's retreat where there's a line, and she said on one end of the line is Martha, and the other end of the line is Mary. Who do you most relate to? And you kind of had to stand on the spectrum of the Mary Martha kind of spectrum. And I was like, I so relate to Martha. I'm just like spinning around. My kids were younger. And so the answer to your question is I would like to sit with Mary, for her to teach me how to slow down, how to listen, how to prioritize, and how to just chill in such a chaotic time.
I love that. So we're going to be watching for any more books to come. I can't wait to hear any updates on this.
You got
But
it.
in the meantime, where can people find the book Special Sauce?
You can find the book on Amazon or barnesandnoble.com. It is in print version, ebook version, and Jason working on audio on the Audible or version for you. And you could do it there, or you could go to my website, and that will take you to those links. Any of my social media accounts, there's a link there as well. But it's Amazon and barnesandnoble.com. Or you can pick one up from me for a small author discount.
Well, all right. If they want to get a hold of you directly, how would they do that? Like, what is your social media? Anything like that you can share with them? And if you send those to me, I can add them to the bottom of this podcast.
Yes, I will send those to you, because the name of my practice is Chrysalis Behavioral Therapy and Counseling, and people don't even know how to pronounce chrysalis. So again, it was a long time ago that I made this up, and it's just the way that a butterfly becomes a butterfly on its own, working to change from a caterpillar. You can't help it or you'll kill it. So my job is to sit along beside you and support you, but I can't do your work for you. So the chrysalis is really hard to spell. So I will give you that information, and you can put it in your notes, and then they can find it that way.
So again,
and can I do a plug for my? I'm sorry.
Repeat the name again, because you kind of bleeped out a little bit.
Oh, sorry. Chrysalis Behavioral Therapy and Counseling.
Awesome. And then what did you want to put a plug in for?
I am doing a free event on Tuesday, October 21st. It's on my social media. It's here in Plano at my office, and it's at 7:00. And I'm just going to talk about the book and sign books if you want my signature, and just have some little sweet treats and refreshments, and just have a time to talk about, you got some time with a therapist. What do you need to know? So I'm hoping that I have some folks coming out here for that.
Awesome. What is your website?
It is chrysalisbtc.com.
Okay, we'll definitely have to get all this in the notes.
Yes.
Now, your event October 21st, will you be recording that at all?
It's going to be a live event, but I'm going to record it, and I'm going to do a separate recording, and whichever one turns out better, I'm also going to put online. So if you don't make it, you'll be able to hear it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. And if you could leave your listeners with one piece of an encouragement today, what would that be?
I would encourage you to remember that in the midst of the broken world that we live in, that if you just focus, instead of on that, focus on the promises of God, that God has a plan, and God has made you in this time for a reason, that you have a purpose, and that He will help you learn how to fulfill that. But even if you don't feel like you're, I'm in charge of this, or I've got this great position at work, if you don't feel like you're really fulfilling a cool purpose like that, just knowing that your job is to spread the good news, be kind to people, that you're still living out your purpose in that way, just showing people the light and being the light. So just keep that in the front of your head, and I think you'll be okay.
And Trisha says she loves the butterfly reflection. And that's so cool because, the butterfly, if it doesn't fight its way out of the cocoon, it can't spread its wings. Its wings won't work. So I love that analogy of the chrysalis.
Thank you.
Well, Shannon, this has been such a blessing to have you on here and to talk about your new book, Special Sauce. So if you can, y'all grab a copy of this. It is so good and you can find it. It's really easy. It's actually a really good read. If you live in the Plano, Texas area and you can join her October 21st, that would be awesome.
Would love it.
Yes. And so you'll get to meet her and you'll get to see just what I see in her. She is such a great person. And we're just so blessed to have you and get to have you here today and hear all about your book and everything. And you had some great information to share with everybody about self-purpose, self-care, tools for their tool belt. And I just love that.
Well, I really appreciate you giving me some time to share it with people. I hope that it gets out to the people that it needs to and that it's helpful in some way.
Absolutely. And so thank you again for being here. And until next time, live your purpose. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Success happens in action. We have to be doing